All right, we are going to go ahead and kick this off. I am Cara Snow with the Technology Association of Oregon, and we're trying to be cognizant of starting things on time. Y'all will see me on video in a little bit, but I am going to act as your, I would say virtual moderator, but I'm actually serving as your moderator. We just happen to be doing this virtually. So I am your real moderator for the evening, and I am going to hand this over to Skip Newberry to do our kickoff and welcome. He is our president and CEO of the Tech Association of Oregon. So Skip, the floor is yours.
All right.
Yeah, Skip, I think your mic is muted.
Huh. No, so the...
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You can hear Cara, but you can't hear Skip.
Can't hear Skip. Thought I could hear Skip.
All right, let's try again. Skip, you want to try one more time?
Sure. All right, so can folks hear me now?
I'm getting
All right, you
getting
got
all good.
Awesome. Cool. All right, so first, I just wanted to say welcome. This is our first ever Agricultural Innovation Challenge Design Sprint, and we're really excited that you're all spending some time with us this evening as we kick this off. Last year, we took the notion of a hackathon, which is typically delivered over 24 to 36 hours, and we completely deconstructed it. And we oriented it around challenges that were defined by the community. And so these two changes to a normal hackathon allowed us to include many more members from the community, both the tech community as well as the general community, and empathize with different communities to foster innovation and build bridges between the tech sector on the one hand and people who are on the front lines trying to tackle problems. In this design sprint, growers and farmers share challenges that they'd like to see technology folks address. And we have some compelling challenges contributed by the growers in the Mid-Willamette Valley. And we have a whole bunch of technologists from really all over the country who are ready to design, develop, and hack. So I'd like to introduce Shawn Irvine. He is the Economic Development Director for the City of Independence and a longtime TAO partner. So Shawn, take it away. We'd love to hear your vision for this week-long virtual event.
Thanks, Skip. Can everybody hear me? Just better double check that. Excellent. Things are working again. So welcome to Independence, virtually at least. You know, if you can picture a kind of classic historic small town downtown Main Street with a co-working space on it, that's where we would be located right now, in a nice little riverfront town surrounded by rolling farmland. So just kind of keep that image in your mind as we're talking tonight. You know, we're in Independence, we're a community that always looks at the future and works to make it a reality. We actually launched our own fiber to the home broadband system over 10 years ago. It's a municipal system, links up our city, the neighboring city of Monmouth, and now just expanded to Dallas nearby, the second largest city of Dallas in the country, I should say. You know, I think you know, our goal really is to demonstrate what it means to be a smart rural community. You hear a lot about smart cities, smart homes, things like that, but really, you know, we want to show that rural communities can embrace the digital age, you know, kind of be places of opportunity, places of innovation, and it's just not in that, you know, we aren't necessarily just trying to be on the right side of the digital divide. We can actually embrace the digital economy and lead in the digital economy because we have some inherent advantages being a small community. You know, we're agile, we're collaborative, we know how to get stuff done. Those are advantages that are, I think, kind of unique to small communities, and given our broadband resources, we've been able to leverage that to really be able to accomplish some things. You know, and honestly, that's why we're here today. we launched our internet system 10 years ago. A few years later, we were kind of looking around going, okay, great, everybody's downloading their Netflix really fast. But we really did this to create economic opportunity. So how do we turn this into something that really does build the local economy? So what we did was say, okay, the Internet of Things looks like it's going to be a thing. So let's go around and try to be a test bed for broadband dependent technologies. We're small, we're easy to work with. You meet with decision makers. We can move fast, but our broadband capacity is equal to anything in the world basically. So we started walking that around, talking to the tech community, and what we kept hearing was, okay, we're interested in smart city, we're interested in smart home, and those kinds of things, but agriculture is an area that is of real interest to us because we see some opportunity there. But the problem is we're here in the city. We don't have any connections to farmers. We don't know, what their problems are or who's willing to test stuff for us. Can you help us with that? And being a rural community, that's a great position for us. We can be this interface between the urban technology industry and the rural agricultural, farmers. So that, essentially we started playing matchmaker and connecting farmers with problems to tech companies with solutions. From there, we've done several interesting pilot projects, research projects, but really it's just time to do something bigger. For us, it's all about solving problems, creating jobs, and improving the economy in rural communities. So the question became, how can we leverage our relationships with farmers? Because they're the ones who are most intimately involved with, agriculture's problems, and create solutions, that make farmers more competitive and create jobs, in these rural places. And by the way, while we're at it, how do we, continue to build an ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship in a rural community? And how do we link that to these existing ecosystems in the more urban centers to really kind of add that value that's already been established in these urban places and bring that to rural communities? These are the questions that led us to partner with TAO. Because we essentially came to them and said, well, how can we've got farmers with problems. We can introduce you, we can walk you around, we can figure out what the problems are. How do we turn that and put that to the tech community and develop solutions? And they kind of kicked back with this, this innovation challenge, this pitch challenge. So, my hope is really to make this a regular thing. This is something that is doable. We've got farmers with problems. We've got, people and resources who have the possibility to create solutions. I think by bringing everybody together, we have the opportunity to really benefit these rural communities and create a model for how rural America can essentially flip the script and begin to prosper again. So with that, I want to introduce Melissa Brandao. She's the founder and chief revenue officer at HerdDogg. I think she's a great example of what we need more of, both in Oregon and in the country, frankly. So Melissa's joining us from Ashland, Oregon, down in the southern part of Oregon. It's a small community down there. She's a 3-time founder of companies, including her latest, which is HerdDogg. They do advanced real-time remote wearables and data science. They're actually the Internet of Herds. HerdDogg's patented system generates and gathers biometric and behavioral data on livestock and wildlife to provide critical insight for heat detection, illness, calving, and tracking your herds in real time. It's easy to install, it's non-invasive, and affordable for all producers. HerdDogg is truly a disruptive technology for all livestock managers, and the fact that it has spun out of a smaller rural community, I think, is really interesting. So I'd like to invite Melissa to share her experience at the intersection of agriculture and technology.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you give me, Cara, power to share my screen? Thou shalt share. Awesome.
Yes, we're
Great.
working on this.
Got it.
I would also like to, before Melissa starts, say thanks everyone for your patience. This was supposed to be a live event, and we're figuring out our largest virtual event as we go. So congratulations to you all for being part of our innovation.
So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm really excited for all of you that are participating in this event. It's really exciting stuff. As Shawn alluded to, I've been in rural Oregon for some time, and I'm a very big proponent of rural technology and rural innovation. I've actually been recognized by the Smithsonian Institute for my work in rural innovation, and I was also invited to the White House as a result of being a woman entrepreneur in a small town. So it's brought a lot of opportunity to me, and I hope to share a little bit of my insight and my background with you all to help maybe inspire you in your journey forward. Shawn and I, by the way, have known each other for several years, so I'm as much a fan of him as maybe he is of me. What he's done in Independence is just an outstanding model for what I hope might be some opportunities that we see across the United States. So anyway, let's see. So I want to start by just saying that, you know, in these times, these very challenging times that we're in right now, one of the things that I'm very clearly aware of is that entrepreneurs are really the first responders in the business industry. I mean, we are the ones that are going to be able to solve problems and find new ways of doing things more efficient, more cheaply, more quickly. So the world really looks to us to come up with these new and innovative solutions. And in times like now, we really have to step up our game. So this is really an opportunity for us to take that charge and go forward with it. When you are establishing your entrepreneurship or your business or your opportunity, it's easy to get involved and sort of marry yourself to the concept or the idea or the product or service that you have. But unless you continue to stay focused on that point of pain, you will get sidetracked. So I encourage you to continue to think of yourself as a first responder, but also continue to think of yourself as focused only on solving one problem, which is a point of pain for your customer. That really will give you a touchstone. It will drive your business, it will drive your opportunity, and it will really establish you with an opportunity to see that business through to success. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about my own background and where I come from and why I'm doing what I'm doing and how I got into it as a point for you of perspective. So I've been in rural ag tech now for almost 20 years. I was a technology person from Silicon Valley. I started my career at Apple. I was just a technology person. I you know, by sheer chance, got the opportunity to work with an electric vehicle company. And as a result of that, started to realize that rural America was this just incredible opportunity out there where innovation could be applied. Not much innovation had yet been applied, but there really was a golden opportunity outside of Silicon Valley for technology. And from that moment forward, I've really focused my attention on working in these environments. They're not, you know, they're not easy environments to work in, but they're so rewarding. So, you know, this company, HerdDogg, has been around now for almost 5 years. We started as an IoT company. So I was out working with some producers in Eastern Oregon, and they started talking to me about the challenges they had with simply seeing what the ID on animals was, right? Like the tags that they were using, the tag would either be too small to read, or they had a reader that they could automate the read it with, but it was too hard to get that animal, you know, restrained in some way. So animals in pasture are almost impossible to catch unless you put them through some sort of squeeze shoot machine to sort of, you know, capture them, and then you can treat them. So they describe this situation where they have animals out in pasture, but they don't know which ones they are. In order to know any more about that animal, they have to restrain them in some way. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd never heard of this. I didn't know this was a problem. I didn't even know this problem existed. How, you know, how can I help? And I really started going through the process of understanding what technology was out there, understanding what why the technology that was available that could solve these types of problems wasn't working in these environments. So there was just any number of questions and assumptions and discoveries that I had to go through in order to really understand this industry. And only then could I really start to develop a solution for it. So I spent a lot of time around that, asking questions. As you can see in this picture, working through issues related to animals, being with the animals, which I really had never had any experience with before, really just walking in their shoes. And as a result of that, when we started, we were an IoT company. So IoT, Internet of Things, we developed a smart tag, which you can see in this with the little red heifer here, a tag that goes on the animal's ear and is inserted on their ear, stays on their ear, measures sensor data, health, illness, as well as it's identifying the animal's, who it is and where they are. And we were really focused on that. We thought that was great, solve that problem. That's a great problem to solve. But in reality, what I was not as aware of, or as I should have been, was that the wider problem was far greater an opportunity and far greater for us to be able to help. And what that really means is that the industry on the whole, the livestock industry on the whole, is incredibly fragmented. So not only is it a challenge to get data off the animal and into the cloud, but once it's in the cloud, get it all out to other providers and parties and create help throughout the supply chain. So this is kind of how business evolves, but I'm bringing this up as an example of the fact that when you're building your business and you're staying focused and you're solving a point of pain, the point of pain that you might start with might not be the point of pain that you're ending with, or you end up supporting. So yes, I did a lot of work around discovery and innovation and how could I apply existing technology to a problem that was age old. But then really, how do I build my business around the industry on the whole? Just to give you some other points, HerdDogg actually is an acronym. DOG is an acronym for Data Generator Gatherer. That was the point of pain that we really were trying to solve. So this idea of getting the data off the animal and into the tag, and then from the tag into the cloud. So yeah, so I've spent a lot of time around discovery and working with producers to really understand what it is they're doing and how they're doing it and how I can help make their lives easier. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about HerdDogg on the whole. So HerdDogg, as an IoT company, we were very focused on building a tag. What we realized when we stepped further back was that there was a whole element of traceability in this industry that was not being addressed. And what we were able to do that most often you don't necessarily run into in terms of coincidence was that the tag part of our business that we started with was really the ideal place to start. It created an automation and a scalability in terms of data that we wouldn't have had otherwise. But the real value for HerdDogg is not in our hardware. It's in creating a traceability platform from the tag on the animal at the producer's site throughout the life cycle of that animal, but also through the data sharing from producer to packer. And so that's really what the business has evolved into. And we would not have been able to know that if we had not continued to sort of look critically at what we were doing and solve the point of pain, even though that point of pain might have adjusted a little bit once we really started getting into it, really understanding that well enough and being willing to continue to evolve our business forward. So now today, HerdDogg is not really the Internet of Herds. We're the animal traceability platform, and we are really focused on solving a problem of allowing producers to make more money for every animal that they raise and to support the global food supply in doing that. So just I'm going to touch on these very quickly. The problem for our producer overall is not just ID in the field. It's that their revenues are declining and have been declining over time. And that's the problem that HerdDogg solves today, is trying to address this issue of bringing revenue per animal back to the producer. I think this is my favorite slide of all, and this has really been something that we have developed over time. This is our vision. So if you think about the food supply today, you think of it very much as a linear process where animals are bred, animals are raised, they go through the process of being brought up and cared for throughout their life, but they end up at a location, at a packer somewhere for this food supply. And what we believe is that it's actually not linear, it's circular. Because the reality, and this is where I think we get into sort of addressing the global food security issues overall, is that unless the information at the end of this food supply gets back to the producer with insights and understanding, the producer will never be able to support the food supply accurately. So we've taken this idea of the traceability being linear, and we've closed the loop. And that's today what we really strive to do, is closing the loop on traceability and food security, so that the originators, the cow-calf operators, the people that are making those decisions early on, are able to benefit from information and discovery at the very end of the food supply. This is just kind of an elaboration on our products. So as we moved away from hardware, we moved into this concept of products around our platform. So we do have the hardware. The hardware and equipment integration are sort of automated data inputs into our system that we call the ARC, or the digital animal record. And then the output of that data allows us to interface with vendors, products and services that are external to HerdDogg, such as like what we call the App Store for livestock, as well as being able to help filter data for regulatory environments that these animals are being supported in, right? So beef programs that are sustainability minded or animal welfare minded, or beef quality, or a particular species, all of these sort of inspector filters on the data itself enable our producers to work much more closely with the food supply to understand the kind of quality and decision making that they need to do earlier on. So we sort of bring everything together into the HerdDogg platform now to allow everybody to participate and share that data. As some of you might know, if you've worked with producers in the past, data sharing and data privacy is a very important issue to them. And HerdDogg has really been very much involved in addressing that. We fundamentally believe that the data that it pertains to the animals, or in our case animals, maybe crops and others, that data is owned by the producer. So we allow them access to using that data in new and in innovative ways. We use that data to do algorithms. We do anonymous-based data, but we keep that data as it originated from the producer, owned by the producer. So that basically they're using their own data within our service. And I think more and more companies are moving in that direction, but there's still quite a bit of discussion around data privacy. And if any of you have questions, I'd be more than happy to elaborate on that further at some point. I've been in a Google working group that was very much involved in discussions around data privacy and establishing kind of policy around data privacy in the industry on the whole. These are our hardware solutions. So they haven't gone away. They have just become a complement to what we do on the platform side. So we now have a trace tag, which is a much simpler version, but it's basically ID only, which allows that tag to be used throughout the animal life. It's a 5-year tag, and then the health tag, which is much more oriented around breeding or stages of life where you need to track more closely animals' health. And we've been able to expand our reading systems further as well. So dog bone is just a small sort of cell phone sized reader. And then we have these extensions to our line now as well with SkyDog and Doghouse. It's been quite a fun adventure to work on building out these products and services, but it's always it's part of growing up your business. We really now focus on this idea that our secret sauce is around these 3 elements of tag, track, and trace. So tag is the hardware, tracking is the layer that allows people to see where those animals are. So where's the animal in the scheme of things? And then trace really goes to this data management, algorithms, insights, data sharing across the industry. Traceability, I think, and what we've seen with what's going on with COVID-19, traceability in all aspects of our lives will become a much more significant component. I think we've recognized that there's areas that have been left alone to sort of do what they want to do, that can no longer be sustained for our world. The other interesting thing about COVID is that it's established, the Department of Homeland Security has established the strategic industries. Agriculture is a strategic industry. And what we found even with our customers is, we shelter in place because we live in rural environment, or we live in comfortable sort of suburban environments, and farmers are out working, nothing's really changed for them. So that has really brought up for us internally a lot of questions around how we can support our producers even in times like this, where you have, bandwidth issues or security issues or labor issues that you may not have in normal times. How can we as a company be able to support them? So these are just kind of some final thoughts that I wanted to share with you. If you've worked in ag or with producers, this might be old hat to you, but just to go through and summarize a few things. Agriculture is a very unique environment to work in ag tech. There's challenges and opportunities, and this actually should say challenges, not opportunities. Unique to ag challenges is telecom access. That's a big one. Being able to have your products work when they need to work in environments that aren't necessarily always as robust as your cities. Producers on the whole are less tech savvy. I know they like to say they are. They are. But less so than your urban environments. And so the assumptions that you work with in these environments have to take that into account. On my tech team, my engineers would love to make things cooler and way funner. There's always new innovation coming, but we always have to go through this filter of, is it really easy to understand? Are you making it as easy to understand as possible? And that's something that you have to keep in mind. This is very important in rural environments. The methodologies are different. The way in which they interact, or they're thinking about their processes are much more long term. But in fact, that is based on a lot of their own legacy thinking. And so you just have to understand what the methodologies are, pull them out, understand them so that you can better apply them. And then slow to adopt. Despite the fact that I, as an optimist and an entrepreneur, would love to think that my product is so cool and so revolutionary that all the producers are just going to pick it up and run with it, I'd be totally wrong. I mean, that's just, it's an assumption that I think we all want to believe, that our products are going to change the way our users think or users behave. It just isn't so. And you have to factor that into the equation. So what we've done as a company is we've built products, but then a lot of our resources and time go to the support. So it's creating systems that help activate, that help create sticky users, that help get users engaged on the service. It's not something you can just put out there and hope that they're going to start using it, because they won't. You've got to help them start to use it. Okay, this is the opportunity slide. So opportunities, there is so much, right? There really is. Everywhere you look in agriculture, there are significant opportunities to help improve the overall industry. And I think, producers are aware of that, and they're supportive of it. Producers are the original innovators. I mean, a lot of our original industrial revolutionary products and technologies came out of rural environments because they were solving problems. And that mindset really works in our favor. So they might be slow to adopt on the wider spectrum, but their innovative mindset is really going to help you figure out your problems faster. I mean, it was not me that said, oh, I got to make tags for livestock. It was these producers that said, this is a problem and I don't know how to fix it. So just keep that in mind. And then, as I mentioned before with COVID, ag is a strategic industry, and that sort of gives you some wind at your back, especially in these times. So keep that in mind. And then I'm just going to wrap up and say, these are kind of my basic ideas as I go about my innovation work, which is, as our company gets bigger and bigger, I really have to make more time for it. But ask questions, take lots of notes, ask stupid questions. It's okay. They like to be asked. I don't know a producer that isn't willing to share with me as much as I am willing to ask. So that's very important. Take risks. This is the time in which you can. So make lots of assumptions, take risks, understand what those assumptions are, and then test your hypotheses, test your theories, and go through that cycle quickly. Fail fast, I guess is what they say. And then really, once you have kind of nailed down what it is you're looking to do, optimize it. Don't stop by just saying, okay, we're good. Take out as much of the complexity and the steps as you can, right? So smooth it out, polish it, so that it is much easier for people to use and for people to understand. And that, I think, really is it. Innovate away, enjoy this process. And if there are any questions that you guys have for me, please feel free to ask. These are critical times. And I think one thing that entrepreneurs and farmers have in common is that we're both optimists and we're both problem solvers. So we live well together. And it's great once you get out there and start working with them. You'll never go back. I'll tell you that. You'll be converted. This is a great environment to work in. So thank you very much. That's it for me.
Melissa, that was absolutely perfect and awesome. And before I give you a virtual round of applause, because I found an app for that, I do have a couple of questions. Jim Couples would like to know the reason for the steep decline in revenue for beef producers. That was an alarming drop-off, and would love your insight there.
That's a great question. So there are so many factors that go into pricing, and pricing in the beef industry has been notoriously non-transparent. It's a part of the industry that has been a challenge for everybody, and they come up against it. And part of our business now is to democratize data in order to make the system more transparent. That's not going to make everybody happy, but it is fair. And that the power that we will have is the leverage of data. So as data becomes a greater component to decision making, you have greater power. And so we believe that steep decline it's based a lot on market, market elements and what the beef producers, what the packers can ask for in terms of pricing. But the trend towards a decline has been because the power is not in the hands of producers. What's interesting though is that beef programs, sustainability, welfare programs, all of these really interesting elements that help consumers make better decisions are really going to be what helps producers make more money too. So we see this market coming together in a really positive way, and we're sort of playing that broker in the middle for data. But great question, very great question. Any other questions?
I have a couple more, yeah. So our friend Pete Nelson, this is, again, like unique opportunity that we're all talking about. This was supposed to be an event that was happening in Independence that was just going to be us in Independence, and now we've got literally folks from all over the country. So Pete's in Memphis. Pete's question is, thoughts on raising money right now? You talked about ag being a strategic industry, but we're seeing kind of the economy behave differently than perhaps any of us have ever seen in the past. So what are your thoughts for entrepreneurs raising money right now?
I think it's going to be very difficult for folks that are looking for new capital. Like if you're a first-time, fundraiser and you're out there trying to raise money for the first time with a new business, I think it'll be hard unless it has some strategic relevance to now. If you came out with a vaccine, or you had some way to make a face mask faster, or something that's very now, I think you would have a great deal of interest from investors. I think for us as a company, we fit into this sort of long-term understanding of the direction of the ag tech industry, right? That it's going towards more regulation, more oversight. So, we're raising money. We haven't seen the drop off in interest. It's been, it's a later stage, so it takes longer, and the type of investor that's there is maybe less risk averse because they're investing in larger and later stage companies. But I think we're seeing with the earlier stage angel investors, risk is a greater part of their portfolio. And so when things are difficult like they are now, it's going to be harder to raise money from them. Sorry.
Consistent with what we're hearing. I have another question from Jim Switzer. So if the grower or the producer owns the data, which is what you were referring to during your presentation, how is the data monetized to the other stakeholders in the life cycle? And that's Jim's question, but I'm going to sort of add on to it. And should it be?
Very definitely it should be. The reason being is that right now the producers are really footing the bill. So they foot the bill for all the tag traceability systems, the hardware, the setup, the livestock management platforms. The only way that you get that cheaper for the producer, which they absolutely want, is to leverage the data that you develop with them throughout the food supply. So you're basically spreading out the costs. So any producer that says, oh no, I just want my data and I'm not going to share, fine, but they're going to end up paying more because you can't not allow the data to be shared and expect to have it cheap, right? It's kind of the trade-off that you have using Facebook. You get ads. If you want the non-ad version of Facebook, you're going to have to pay for it. So that's kind of where it ends up coming down to. And most producers are actually happy that there's value that's being generated from their data, because that really is an opportunity for them to lower their overall costs. So we haven't seen a lot of pushback on that, really.
Awesome. Ken Alger from MongoDB would like to know, how much competition do you have in your space?
So there's definitely when we started, we were a tag company, and there are a lot of tag competitors out there. There's a lot of tags. It's been an industry that's been around for a long time. Where we are different with the tags is that our tags are Bluetooth, and we have a very non-static design, right? Everything is movable. You move them with the herd moves, you move them. But that being said, we hit on a lot of different industries, and we have competitors in all of them. We don't really have any direct head-to-head comparison in the United States. There's a couple of Israeli companies that do what we do. But, as far as sort of bringing all these elements together, we kind of have different competitors in different parts of our business.
Awesome. And then our last question, which is really nice for Shawn to tee up for us. What's the one thing you would tell someone who is about to launch an ag tech startup?
I'd say the only thing that matters is to listen to your customer. You really don't, you're not in business for anything other than to serve them. And so be as good at knowing what you need to do as your customer is. And so I would say, spend a week with a farmer, or, as much time as you possibly can, so that you automatically think the way that they do. Because that's the only thing that matters.
I love that answer, and you touched on a lot of what the work that Alex and I did, and he's our next presenter, but we have spent 6 months coming up with these challenges, and there were so many things that you said that were so spot on. The producers are happy to share information. Go and spend time, ask questions. It's all really, really perfect. I can't think of a better keynote for our experience tonight, so I'm going to ask everyone to raise their hands, and we'll pretend we're clapping, and we'll see how this works. So let's see if we can hear it. Yay! I'm pretty proud of myself for that one.
Thank you all.
There's an app for everything. Melissa, you were wonderful. Thank you so, so, so much. And now I am.
You want me to hang around?
Say what?
You want me to stay?
Oh my gosh. I mean, you could probably offer insight. You basically just explained a design sprint. I'm like, she's taking all my content. This is great. I don't have to do anything else. We appreciate Melissa. She's the best. Please do. We'd love you to stick around. I don't think we're going to be going for much more than probably 15-ish more minutes. So please join us. Alex, are you ready?
I am.
All right, the floor is yours.
Great. And I'll just introduce myself. I'm Alex Paraskevas. I work for an organization called SEDCOR. We are the Strategic Economic Development Corporation. We're a regional economic development organization that covers Marion, Polk, and Yamhill counties in Oregon's Willamette Valley. And then I'm also the Rural Innovation Catalyst, which is a lofty title that I'm trying to still figure out maybe what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm pretty sure this is it, this kind of stuff. I just wanted to give a little bit of context about sort of why I'm involved, and a little bit of background for those who are not as familiar with agriculture in Oregon. So Shawn Irvine, who you met earlier, wrote a grant and hired a Rural Innovation Catalyst, and the Ford Family Foundation, which is a foundation based out of Roseburg that funds lots of amazing work in rural areas and rural communities, decided to fund the position, or fund the grant. And then Shawn, realizing that he's a city guy and maybe not as much as a county guy or a regional guy, really sort of worked with SEDCOR to hire my position. And so I've been a lot of the boots on the ground for this kind of work. And a lot of these relationships and the challenges that we're talking about tonight came, I think, not solely by any means from my work, but a lot of, came out of that. Oregon agriculture is a pretty cool space. And you said, Melissa, something about being a convert and being converted. And I think everybody will that talks to me and hears me talk knows that I am hook, line, sinker, bathing in the agricultural Kool-Aid of Oregon. We grow 225 crops in the state. In this region, we're about at 150. We are 97%-ish family farms. Average farm size for the state is 475 acres. And so we are not big corporate ag. We are a lot of just small family farms. And Melissa, you really killed it talking about sort of the original entrepreneurs and that entrepreneurial mindset. You know, every time we talk to a farmer or a grower, you know, if you call them an entrepreneur, you get a little bit of side eye. Like, what are you talking? You know, that's not me. You know, and I'm like, no, of course, because they have to be everything. They have to be, you know, mechanic. They have to economist. They have to look at sort of where the wind's blowing in the world markets. They have to do all these things. And so it's been really fun to spend 6 months with Cara and TAO and Shawn, of course, to hear about the actual problems and hear what the actual pain points are. And of course, it's you can't just, what I've learned is you can't just walk up and like, hey, what's your problem or what's your pain point? It really is spending that week or many months building relationships and having conversations. And so that's kind of how we came to these challenges. So I feel really lucky to be doing the work that I'm doing. And I think everybody in Oregon should be really, really proud of what we do in the state. And so I feel like challenges like this are a really good way to sort of get everybody more connected into that. So I'll stop and see if Shawn or Cara wants to add anything, but otherwise I would just talk about the challenges real quickly. You can read about them, so I'm not going to read them verbatim. The first challenge that we identified is clean grass seed, and it's actually probably clean any seed, but grass seed is where we're starting. We're the grass seed, you know, that's a big crop for us in this area, and I think most people don't understand sort of why all that grass is growing, and it looks like a field and it's pretty, and like, you know, what are you going to do with that? And of course, you let it go to seed, and then you harvest it, and then you clean it out, and then you sell the seed to, you know, places like Scott's or wherever, you know, you go to your Home Depot, or when you can go out again, you can go buy grass seed. But grass seed pricing is all based on clean seed. So you don't want to pay for weeds. You don't want to plant your grass and then find out it has other things in it. And of course, if you're a golf course or if you're one of the bigger users, you want it clean. Well, one of the big problems with that is that it takes a lot of effort to clean grass seed, sort of like to spot spray the things you don't want growing in a grass seed field. And of course you can't, you know, in a big grass seed field that could be hundreds or, you know, 1,000 acres, you don't have time to usually walk the whole field. And so generally right now, spot spraying is done by, if you walk by or go by a field and you see guys with backpacks on and they're walking around and they're identifying weeds or identifying things that are not grass, we'll say, or a different type of grass, they'll spray it. And then, you know, with labor shortages and whatever else, this becomes even more expensive and probably less accurate. And so what we have designed for this challenge is creating some sort of an automated solution for spot spraying weeds to increase the yield of clean grass seed per acre, assuming, you know, a relatively small field at, you know, 50 acres of field or so. And this can run the gamut from any kind of visioning system or whatever else. This is a tough one. This is probably, I would say this is one of the harder challenges because you're trying to discern different types of green realistically. But this is, of course, you know, all the challenges, you know, point to pain points of either labor or, you know, increasing yield or some sort of process improvement. And so this to me is probably the most holistic, I think, in that regard. So if that's good, I'll move on to the next one. If you guys want to jump in, all right, we're good. The next one, this one is one of the near and dear ones, I think, to Shawn's heart for sure, but I think also to just the state's heart. So like I said, we have, you know, so many different agricultural commodities that are grown and processed in Oregon, but there's really not like a centralized data source for all of this. And we actually pitched these, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago at a meetup in Independence. And I think he's on the line, Gary Neuschwander from the Oregon Department of Agriculture. And he even indicated, you know, man, we get calls all the time about what's this, or, you know, how many acres of that? And he's like, we don't have we don't actually have like really good centralized data. You know, growers are not going to be real quick to share their nuts and bolts data generally, just because it is competitive advantage. And so, there's lots of existing data in data sets that are already they're already put together. And so in this challenge, we would like to leverage technology to create a data hub that can scale to host all Oregon crop information. And then of course, you know, the beauty of that is running analytics on top of it for trend spotting, et cetera. And I think, you know, the compensation piece is the most interesting piece, I think, in my personally, just because diversified revenue streams are key for agriculture. And just a slight tangent there, you'll notice that most farmers in this area or all across Oregon, they don't grow one crop necessarily. In this region, they all have at least 7 to 10 and sometimes 15. And so when I was talking about sort of all the different things you have to do, you're not just looking at one crop, you know, the market data and global kind of trends, you're looking at 10 crops. So yeah. Making technology accessible is all about making it simple and making easy decision making with better data. So anything else, Shawn or Cara? We're good. All right. The next challenge is one of my favorite places in all my time in the last couple of years that I've spent at SEDCOR is our local dairy. The Rick Dairy, which is maybe 10 minutes from Independence, has 3,500 cows. They're milking 1,700 any given time. I've also been like 8 times now for a tour. I will happily take anybody on a tour, open invite, because I can give the tour at this point pretty well, just because I've done it so much and I love it so much. And the thing you learn about dairy is sort of what the regulatory environment looks like for them. And so they have, 20 or 21 different regulatory bodies on top of them. And so it's a lot of paperwork, more than anything. And so that falls to the herdsman. His name is Nate. And Nate, in addition to sort of running the dairy, also has this whole extra 1.0 FTE job of doing data. And so it's a lot of duplicated effort on his part, but of course you just have to fill out all the forms, and it's very manual. So what we'd like to do for the approval process challenge is see a workflow and process automation developed to lessen the time it takes for the approval process to occur, and then of course minimize mistakes. And I think there's an additional opportunity to develop a system where a grower producer can input the data once and then share it to various agencies. So distributed ledger, blockchain, whatever, but it's really a workflow and business process management challenge. And I can't say enough good things about the Rick Dairy. So from a personal standpoint, this one is very near and dear to me, because helping them, the price of milk isn't great. So milk is actually a byproduct that they lose money on. So anything to save them time or money would be fantastic. So if that's it, we'll go to the next one. It's kind of funny to talk about wine goggles, because I think we use that euphemistically all the time. And I know Cara is drinking a glass of wine or 3 right now. But so, of course, or maybe not of course, the Willamette Valley has a lot of wineries. We have 725 wineries. We sell millions of cases of wine every year. And as the grapes ripen, they turn from green to purple, especially for Pinot grapes. But there's a period of time when harvested grapes look purple, but aren't fully ripe yet. And so those things are hand sorted and along a conveyor belt. And so then the workers look for unripe fruit, but it's hard to determine if it looks purple but isn't ripe. So what ends up happening is, of course, more expensive bottles of wine have sort of cleaner grapes, right? So higher quality, more processed. But the bigger optical sorting systems that exist on the market are ludicrously expensive for lots of our smaller wineries, or for even our bigger wineries. And so in this challenge, what we liked is a set of sort of goggles that are relatively inexpensive that can be worn by a crew on the conveyor line to accurately remove rotten or unripened fruit. And this is, again, a hardware and software kind of piece, but there is a really fantastic market for this because every winery, especially here that's growing Pinot grapes, needs this and can help increase their quality and also just volume. So, and I guess the last challenge, and this one is probably the nearest and dearest to my heart because I'm on a constant soapbox of talking about Oregon agriculture to people that are unfamiliar with it. And up until a couple years ago, I was the exact person who needed this app or product or challenge solution. I think, with under 2% of people or fewer than 2% of people involved in agriculture, there's a lot of, let's say, ignorance to where your food comes from and what the supply chain looks like. I think that's probably some of the silver lining of a COVID crisis is I've heard more supply chain conversation in the last 2 weeks than I have in the last couple of years. And so maybe people are becoming more conscious of this. But what I think we need is some sort of, essentially marketing campaign for Oregon agriculture. We actually, Oregon Women for Ag and Oregon Ag Link have a crop sign initiative. So if you drive up and down some of the crops on I-5, or especially if you're out in the county, you'll see a physical sign that says what the crop is, perennial ryegrass or what have you, hazelnuts, especially right now. And so what we envision is a development of an app or something, and it's not, I don't want to constrain it to an app, that allows consumers to interact directly with growers and learn more about farming practices, ask questions about crops which they are not familiar with, and engage directly to ask questions. So that we don't, that could look like many different things, but I think this is a really key piece for Oregon agriculture. I think, like I said, like I opened with, Oregonians should be proud of what Oregon produces and how it's produced and the culture and the practices, and everybody should be really, really excited about that. And so, coming up with better ways in which to sort of bridge that divide is really key, I think. So those are our challenges. So I'll kick it back to you, Cara.
Thanks, Alex. That was awesome, and I love the conversations going on in the chat. Apparently that's me. I'm enthusiastic, and I do dance like that badly. I'm going to refer to some notes because I'm the next presenter. I've never introduced myself. And before I go through some of the logistics of this week and how this is going to work, I do want to echo Alex. I mean, I grew up outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and it was rural when my parents moved there and then quickly became part of the city. So I consider myself a city girl, but I'm a convert, and I'm like laughing as I'm able to answer the questions in the chat about the monetization of data for growers and changing commodity pricing. Because if you had told me 6 months ago when we started this project that this would be like the favorite thing I'd been doing this year, I don't know that I would have said yes. And I will tell you that I'm spending my COVID time watching like a great series that Alex sent me. So while other people are rewatching Game of Thrones, I'm watching a PBS documentary series called American Grown around agriculture in California. So it's definitely a perspective shift, and I've really enjoyed getting to meet all the entrepreneurs. So how is this supposed to work as a design challenge sprint? So I'm here to tell you what's next. You'll get all of this information sent to you as well, but I thought I'd quickly reiterate, thank you, Melissa, what a design sprint looks like. So it is a week-long sprint where in the first day you map out your problem and pick an important place to focus. Luckily, we've mapped out a lot of those programs. Our challenges are there, so it's really like, which one are you going to focus on? Then you ideate and capture potential solutions with your team or as an individual. Then on day 3, it's the sad day because you have to pick one solution and turn that idea into a testable hypothesis. I'm like really proud of myself that Melissa used the same language that I was going to use 5 slides later. Day 4, you're going to hammer out your prototype, whether that's a hardware or software solution. And then on day 5, that's when you're going to test your solution with real live humans. And by that, we mean our judging panel. So this is the concept of a design sprint. We're going to share a document with everyone that's like 9 pages versus 1 slide that really teaches you how to do that. It's like the how-to guide of a design sprint. And so our next slide is really about our agenda and how those days align. So obviously we're having the kickoff now. The next like 5 days were going to happen, some virtual, some in person, but now it's obviously all virtual. But we're having office hours with each of the producers that helped us come up with these challenges, which is pretty cool. So tomorrow morning we will have Bruce from Van Duzer Wineries. He is a gem. He is all about these goggles. On Friday, we'll have Dylan from Rydell Farms, and then Kate, as our venue sponsored, Indie Commons is going to host us on Saturday and Sunday so that we could all get together for a couple of hours and hash out ideas, talk about like challenges we're having as we try to do this work, have the growers that are available to kind of to pop in based on weather. That's obviously not happening. So if you're looking for a place to collaborate on Saturday and Sunday, you can join me on the TAO Zoom to answer questions or, you know, just a general check-in. And then on Monday, we get Nate from the dairy, from Rick Rial Dairy. And then on Tuesday, we get Kevin Porter talking about the What's That Crop app. And then on Wednesday, April 8th, 1 week from tonight, we hope that you all show back up with some of your team members and you're going to pitch back to our judging panel. And I left one off. On Friday, we're also going to have a conversation around the statewide data hub, and that is going to be led by Shawn and Skip with some support from Cara and Alex. So I know there's a lot of questions in the chat around the data hub piece of it. So that'll be an interesting discussion. These are going to be fairly unstructured, but really an opportunity to like fully collaborate. So we won't have mics off at that point. We'll just try to figure out how, you know, up to 30 people can have a conversation around these things. So that's our agenda. It's all going to be virtual. I have to give like a huge shout out to Shawn and his like enthusiasm and optimism to keep this moving forward. Because we were like, what do we do? And he's like, y'all are real smart, you'll figure it out. And here we are now having a national innovation challenge. And I see a note that can we go to any of the office hours or just the ones we're signed up for? You are welcome to come to any of the office hours. And when you log into your registration portal, which is our tool called CVent, you can see when all of them are, and you can also see the Zoom information. So we see that right now we can support up to 40 people. I think our subscription is like 100-ish. So bring your friends and your kids and we'll all learn something. So please feel free to come to any of them. All right. So what is it that we are going to look at as you design these solutions? That is a great question. Again, we got dancing llamas. It's part of our internal culture. So we have a judging scorecard that is going to look at 7 things that, from a technology and a producer standpoint, we got feedback on all of these. So we are not expecting you to present to us next Wednesday a fully baked solution. Some wireframes, if you have a 3D printer at home and you manage to make Bruce's goggles from the wine production standpoint, he will probably send you like a nice bottle of wine and be delighted. But drawings, renderings, those will be fine. But we want you to be able to articulate our the aesthetics, you know, what does it look like, how would it be used, that's both from a hardware and software perspective, the usability, like is it technically viable and sound, does the functionality work, and that's both from a producer standpoint and from a tech perspective. Does it accomplish the goal? Like, are we getting farmer ROI out of this? And then we will judge you on your brief 5-minute presentation. And we know that that looks different than it used to. So we're still kind of building the plan of how we're going to get potentially 6, 8, 10, I hope 10 different teams pitching back solutions. But the judging criteria is also going to be more fully fleshed out and available to you once we get off this call. So that is what we're going to look at. And we have a super distinguished judging panel. One of the questions we've been asked is, do you have any growers that are going to judge? And the growers didn't really express much interest in the judging portion. And so we have Josh Carter, who is with WeWorks Labs. So somebody who's really intimately familiar with what a good startup looks like and which ones could be viable. Then we have Laura Rumble with Intel, who has been really vital in some other projects in the region, including a blockchain blueberry pilot. And so she has some vested interest from Intel. And then Gary, I'm never going to get your last name right. So I'm just going to say Gary's with the Department of Ag for the state of Oregon and has a long-term history with being a grower and with farmers. And so he's going to offer some of that perspective. You know, we hope that the growers join us that evening, but we also are realistic in the fact that it is spring and there is a lot to do on their respective farms. So those are our judges, and they will be the ones scoring each solution. One thing that we should probably share is there's no prize money at the end of this. This is really just an opportunity to help pitch something cool. Like in the next week, if I can magically find prize money, like there will be some. But we're really looking for a couple of solutions that, you know, we hope someone wants to invest in, or that could be viable for making Oregon Ag more competitive. We know that we actually have a grant opportunity with the Data Hub, so we just hope that we can see some more of that coming out of the presentation. So those are our judges. And then, oh, fantastic. Happy to offer WeWork Labs admission to the winning team. Josh Carter, you are my hero. So, Cara, how the heck are you going to manage all these people around the country putting together like challenges to, or solutions to challenges? That's a really good question. We're going to try some new technology. We at TAO have a platform called Mobilize. It is an engagement tool. It allows you to collaborate, kind of like a Facebook, but it is private. There are no ads, so you don't have to turn anything off, nor do you have to pay anything to be a part of it. The price of admission was signing up to participate in this design sprint. It is a place where all of the documentation that I have just referred to is living. So the challenges, the judging scorecard, the design sprint documentation, the video for this event will be there. It allows you to communicate with each other without having to share any contact information. Everyone's contact information is blinded. You will just be part of the 2020 Ag Innovation Challenge Design Sprint at techoregon.com. Ignore your really long email address, but it allows you to communicate and collaborate with each other. So there's a couple more slides I'm going to share about this. Justin, the next one is an actual video. I don't know if this is going to work, but we're going to hit play and see if you all can get a minute and 30 seconds look into our platform that we're going to use to navigate this virtually. Justin, let's see what happens. Nope, we just went to the next slide. Okay, cool. So that video is going to be in Mobilize. Wait, there's no sound. There's supposed to be sound.
Ask questions, share knowledge, and tap into your community resources. Start a discussion by creating a post. You can add pictures, animated GIFs, links, and even files to it. In the member section, you can discover your peers. Find a member you'd like to connect with and start a private chat. Start a group chat with more than one member by clicking the chat tab on the left-hand side navigation bar. Click Start a Chat and choose the peers you'd like to connect with. It will always hit their inbox as well, so you'll know they'll get the message. You don't have to register or log in to keep connected to your community. You can send emails and stay in the conversation by using the group email address like this. Find all your community events in the event section of your lounge. Sign up to the events you want to attend and have it sync right to your personal calendar. The file section is your community resource center. You can access, view, and download them in seconds. Now that you got to know the space a little better, fill out your profile and let people get to know you. In the settings area, you'll find all your notification settings for email, posts, and mobile. You can choose how to interact with your group and the frequency of the communications you receive. Download the Mobilize app where you can join in live conversations or real-time chats and browse your groups on the go. All right, ready to jump in? Get involved by introducing yourself with a great introduction post.
All right, that actually worked. Oh my God. Everything's coming together. So we're gonna hang up from this call, and everybody that has registered to participate is gonna receive an email invitation to Mobilize. It is not spam. Once you hit yes, it says to complete your profile, which you do or do not have to do. We basically have your basic information in there already from registering. I will be honest, like people ask me all the time, what about tool fatigue? And I hear that, but like right now, we're trying to figure out how to have a closed group for everyone to collaborate, and this works within our infrastructure. So I actually don't use the app at all. I just use the desktop. It's great. The part that wasn't in that video is it integrates with your email. So if you want to send Shawn a note, you can actually do it like through your own email client, which is pretty cool. So you'll get your email invitation to Mobilize. We're going to ask you to register and complete your profile. We have 2 polls waiting for you when you get into the lounge, which sounds so fancy. One poll is going to ask which challenge you're working on. The other poll is going to ask you if you need a team, and if you do, we'll help connect you. And then you'll see some samples in there, like AK mine and Justin's, who I'm about to give a huge kudos to, introducing yourself and tell us what about this sprint is interesting to you. And so this is going to be the way that we communicate throughout the week for the most part. Somebody asked earlier about registering for the other hour sessions. Those will also be loaded in to Mobilize, and we'll put the Zoom info in there. So, you know, this is going to be maybe a little redundant in terms of the communication you get, but we feel like this is the best way to get everybody interacting. And then we're super lucky in the world that originally all of the calls and meetups were going to take place on TIO's Zoom and in TIO's infrastructure, but I have a feeling almost 100% of us have downloaded some collaboration tool in the last 2 weeks. So I think everyone's pretty set to figure out how to work collaboratively themselves. But if not, we're available for questions, and Justin is our community manager, and he is not speaking on this call, but he is running the slides and the video, and this would not have happened without Justin Martinez on the TIO team. He has a hotel and he has a hospitality background and event management, and he came in to TIO about 9 months ago to support us with in-person events, and in the last 10 days has become our full-time online community engagement manager, and he is absolutely incredible. And these slides are interactive and fun because of the work that he put into them. So it takes a village, and he is a really important part of ours. So he will also help you with Mobilize, and I'm going to say I'll help you too, but he's better at it. So we're here to answer your questions as a team. I think that's it, and I am like actually really shocked because it's exactly on the agenda time that I thought would happen. So we have a note from Derek in there that he'd be happy to mentor or guide, and if anyone has any other questions, we're happy to answer them. So I'll like pause. I'll still pause. All right, my applause app has 25 options, so I think we should give ourselves another round of applause. We'll try 18. Amazing, good stuff. It's a long one, very self-congratulatory, and we really appreciate everybody being here tonight. On all of your time zones. I have to give a shout out to Mark Rembert. I think he's up in Vermont. He's still hanging out there. And we talked to him earlier today, and we said, this is going to be really great, or we don't know what's going to happen. And I'm going to go with really great. So it's been awesome working with Shawn and Alex and Kate and all the growers. And we're really excited to see what we can deliver back to them at the end of next week. Mark said it was great, but I think he feels like he has to. So with that, we'll say cheers, good night, be safe. I see a beer, there we go.
Thank you.
And we will look forward to seeing some of y'all tomorrow. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.